Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing a book and it's a sequel, and that is The Infinite Sea by Yancey. If you seen other videos of mine, like my favorite books of 2015, then you would know that the first book, The Fifth Wave, was one of my favorite reads of 2015. I loved it so much. That book was phenomenal. Then I was worried about going into this one because so many people say it's not as good and that it's kind of pointless, right? And I see where they're coming from in certain aspects. That was hard to say. And obviously I did enjoy it because I tabbed a few things that I want to talk about in this review. But I can say before going into spoilers, honestly there's not a lot since this is the second book. If you read the first book, The Fifth Wave, and you were skeptical about going into this one like I was, just continue, because I bet the third book's gonna be freaking epic and I can't wait to read it. The writing style is still amazing like The Fifth Wave. You still got those different POVs, which Yancey does beautifully. I suggest you read this if you are still skeptical. I'm sure once you watch the movie, you're just going to want to, know what happens. So let's get into that spoilery section. So if you haven't read this, I suggest you click out unless you want to be spoiled. If you want spoilers for breakfast, you're weird. When you first start reading, the first POV you have is Ringer. We haven't really read from her perspective yet, so it's kind of interesting. But she's not my favorite to read from, right? Like, in her first chapter POV, I was like, I'm not really feeling this. Give me some Cassie, right? And then, in the end, in this huge chunk at the end, it's all Ringer's POV, and I kind of was digging it, and I loved it a lot. And the section where Ringer and Cassie were stereotyping each other just to, push each other's buttons, Ringer said something about Cassie that literally defined me to a T. So this is Ringer stereotyping Cassie. And this goes on, then it's you're socially awkward, so you read a lot, and you've kept your journal since middle school. You've had only one close friend, and your relationship was codependent, which means every time you fought with her, you slid into a deep depression. You're a daddy's girl, never that close to your mother. Actually, I'm pretty close to my mother, so that doesn't really define me, but you're stubborn, and you're impulsive, and a little hyper. So that's pretty much me, right? Yes, I thought that was funny, which kind of made me laugh and made me relate to Cassie even more than I already did. Actually, I never really related to her because she's pretty badass, and let's be real, all I do is sit in bed and read, so I can't really get badass from that. But that paragraph described me and Cassie at the same time. Okay, something that really I disliked in this book, which made me dock half a star in my rating, was because why was Cassie and Sammy why were they so distant? Why were they not a fan of each other? I was confused why Sammy didn't want anything to do with Cassie, and Cassie was trying so hard to be a good sister, and he was just not loving it. He wanted to be with Ben, or Zombie, I guess. Why would you name yourself Zombie, of all things? But I was I didn't like that at all. It was freaking Queen of Shadows, but in brother and sister, and not lover relationship, and I was not loving life with that. Okay, and let's talk Ringer and Teacup again. Did Ringer shoot Teacup? I was confused. I know someone was coming in through the grass or the whatever, and Ringer was ready to shoot because he thought it was like a silencer or an alien or something. And then Teacup was like injured, and I didn't know if it was a silencer that did that in the hills or if that was a ringer on accident. If you read this book, someone clear that up for me, because I was like, wait, why did you just shoot Teacup? And if Ringer did shoot Teacup, why didn't you just wait a second for the person to come out of the freaking grass or wherever they were and see their face? I don't understand. I'm confused. I don't know why she wouldn't wait a second to see whose face it was, but it was weird. It was a little weird. Now let's talk sexy alien boy Evan, who I'm confused if he is an alien or not an alien, because they made it pretty clear in the fifth wave that he was an alien. But then in this one they were like, oh, he's like a human, but he thinks he's an alien. And I'm like, are you an alien or are you human? I don't know. Is that something that I didn't pick up on in this book, or do we get more of it in The Last Star? I'm still confused, but we're just gonna roll with the punches on that one. So we start off his like POV, and that he's held captive by this girl Grace, who is it Grace, you know? And apparently they've met before at like a carnival or something, and she's an alien and they sensed each other. And I was like, oh, an alien ability that you sense each other? So I'm like, maybe he's an alien. I still don't know. Still not sure. But she's like holding him captive, and there's this scene where she like, it's basically, I'm not gonna say rape, because they didn't go, they didn't do all that. But she was like forcefully kissing him, and he didn't really want any of that. And so she just continued to try and kiss him, and I was like, come on, he's not into that. Why are you doing that? And then he like hits her. Oh, my foot's asleep. And he like forcefully like hits her, and to make him not get away, she like grabs at his burns on his body, and I was like, oh no. And I felt gross, because I was just imagining that in my head, and I was not loving it. And he like forcefully like hits her, and to make him not get away, she like grabs at his burns on his body, and I was like, oh no. And I felt gross, because I was just imagining that in my head, and I was not loving it. Evan got injured, and then he was trapped beneath a car, and someone unknown waiting to murder him in the woods. So that was pretty funny and pretty clever on Rick Yancey's part. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And also the other parallel was like when Cassie shot Evan in, the knee area, and then right after she shot him, she was like, guess we're even. And then she was like having a conversation with, what's his name? Dumbo. And then he said, hold on, I have the quote right here. Why didn't you shoot him in the head? Why the knee? And then she says, poetic justice. Loved it. Oh, man. I loved it so much. Like, the little sarcasm, parallel aspects. A+, Rick Yancey, A+. And let's talk about how these aliens are putting bombs on little kids. Pretty messed up, if I say so myself. Like, how could these poor kids, like, I was wondering why in the fifth book, after the bus scene when Sammy and, what's that girl's name? Melanie? I don't know. The little girl, and they were together, and they got separated, and we never heard from her again. And I was wondering why all these kids are getting separated from everyone else. And we find out that these kids are getting bombs infused in them, like CO2 bombs, so when you breathe, they explode. So that was pretty intense, and then we find out that they're in the hotel, and I think her name's Melanie. I could be wrong, but she walks in, and Samu's like, Melanie, and they run and hug her, and find out this chick's got one of those CO2 bombs in her. And so the scene where Cassie is like trying to do surgery and take the bomb out, and Evan's just standing there, and he's like saying stuff, and she's like, shut up, and he says something else, and she just keeps saying, shut up, shut up, shut up. Loved the banter, that witty, lovey-dovey banter. Yes. Let's talk about this love triangle that's not really a love triangle, because it's pretty obvious who she's kind of really into. So she kisses Ben a couple times, right? Which, I mean, I would too, especially if he actually looks like Nick Robinson. But she's like really into Evan, and Ben doesn't really stand a chance, but there's still kind of a little love triangle. And it's weird because it's not really a love triangle, but usually in love triangles the girl just really likes both of them and she doesn't know who to choose. But in this one, it's pretty obvious who she is into. And then we get to this like huge ringer section, and so we find out she's captured, and Vosh, what's his name? Vox, whatever homie's name is, needs to die. She needs to pull through with her plan to murder him and just do it. And we meet this guy. Also, I know Ringer is like already casted because of the movie or whatever, but I have no clue what she looks like because I don't pay attention to her in the previews, and obviously the movie hasn't come out yet. But I picture her as Arden Cho because they say she's Asian. I know Ringer's like 17, 16, whatever, and Arden's not, but she plays one in Teen Wolf, so that's who I'm picturing in my head. And then we meet this guy Ringer, and when she's describing him, they say like Ben Parrish, but like blonde hair and all this. And I'm picturing Mason Dye. I don't think any of you probably know him, but he was on Teen Wolf. You can't really say who his character was without spoiling it, but I will try and insert a picture since Movie Maker doesn't overlay image. You might just get a little 5-second picture of him right about now. But anyways, that's who I picture him as, and so they have this little romance thing going on. Like, he comes in, he gives her meals and all that jazz, and then they, escape somewhat, and it turns out he wasn't really on her side because he was helping Vosh. Is that how you say it? I don't really know, but he was helping him, and then later on we discover that Razor actually does love her. And he helps her escape for a second time, and he kisses her, and then she says, don't do that. And then she kisses him twice to pay him back or whatever. And then he's like, I only kissed you once, you kissed me twice. For my, little book discussion thing, I'm excited to see where the last star goes because I want to know how this ends. And when does that puppy come out? Because I need it now. And I hope you enjoy my little book discussion on The Infinite Sea by Yancey. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.